Hello, bonjour. Well, holidays are all over, so all holiday videos are over. It's now, well, end of September. Today is the first time I'm feeling the chill. So I find my shoes. I've got a bag of vegetables to take round for our friends to feed Sharon's chickens because she's on holiday again. And I've got to change our gas bottle. So we've conveniently put them by the front door in the hope that I don't forget. Right, where's my shoes? No, that's not mine. There we go. I'm going to change my shoes. Then I've got to go down the garden. I don't know if you would have even really noticed, but I'm now back in trousers. And it feels really strange. It's been shorts and skirts and dresses for so long. One of the longest, warmest summers we've ever had. I'm just going to get my coat, which is behind you. I must oil that door. Right, keep that out of the way for a minute. Right, let's go down the garden. Incidentally, this is hanging on my stairs. This is one of my recent makes. I think I've said to you before, well, probably not on this channel, but on the other channel, I love to do applique. So I copied and made my own pattern for Mickey and made that little bag. Right, let's go. Also, I'll quickly show you, and if I've shown you the utility room before, you know what utility rooms are like, or some people call them boot rooms or whatever. They're messy, everything's in there. Duncan's precious bike, which is covered with towels to protect it, and that's our water tanks, one for us and one for the gîte. On the left it used to be a really long narrow one, and Duncan installed that short fat one over the weekend, and it's apparently more efficient, so that's good. He's going to move it again to try and put some shelves around it to give us a bit more storage in here, but it's already fairly well utilised, the space. So I've come in to get my washing basket, believe it or not, as I left my washing out on the line for about a week and it's been in several showers of rain, so it's going to have to come in and be washed again. We're at that time of year where the grass is now grown and it's wet, and my trainers are now wet because I didn't think of that. Well, that's wetter than it was when I put it out. As I say, it's now end of September, so we're properly into October now, and it's definitely chilly and damp. And the garden's looking lovely and green again, which is always a plus. Hope you've enjoyed all of my holiday videos. When this comes out, we will have been on another holiday, believe it or not. I've spoken about it before in one of the videos. Long awaited. It's about a week's time we'll go into that, but by the time you see it, we'll be back home again. It's going to be hopefully nice and warm there, although they've had some storms as well. We're going to Lanzarote, which is one of the Canary Islands, for those who don't know. You can't imagine for 1 minute why you wouldn't know. And it's going to be pretty good. And Sharon is actually on her way now to Tenerife, one of the other islands, with a couple of her best friends from school. So today I'm going into Lassie. I may or may not do a bit of filming, but I'm meeting our friends looking after Sharon's chickens and cats, and we're going to have a walk around the outside of Lassie, just to get a bit of exercise, and I'll report back in maybe during that or after that. I'm planning on doing a video where I thought I'd make a list of the questions that people quite often ask me or have asked me, and some of you may be curious, and I thought I might just put a video together answering some of those questions. And some of you seem to like the videos where we have a chat, basically. While we're on that subject, sadly had a message or a comment that said I stopped watching her when she started moaning. Well, I think some of you regulars will know that I don't think I moan. I just talk normally, like I talk to you like you're my friends, and if I need to vent something, I'm going to vent to you, aren't I? So needless to say, I turn them off too. It's part and parcel of being on YouTube, I know, but I still never really understand why people have to be so nasty. I've got a feeling it was one from way back when I maybe was moaning about Boris, and some of you regulars will know I was not happy with Boris at the time because he was stopping me seeing my children. But so that's gone. I mean, as I say, I talk to you as if I'm talking to my friends, and if I talk to Sharon, we'll have a grumble, put the world right, same as any friends do, and that's what I like to do. If I know I've got quite a few viewers who don't generally go out very much, and they like to have another friend to sort of chat to. And I like, as you know, I like to take you along with me on some of my journeys, and hopefully most of you enjoy that. Before I go, I'm going to have a quick look just to see by any chance there's some little tomatoes hanging on. Other than that, I should be going back in, and I think that's about it for now. Well, I never. It's about 6 tomatoes in there. Let's go and pick those. Oh, there's a bit more than 6. I'll have to get a flower pot to put them in. I think that'll be big enough. Right. Look at that huge one. Might fall through the hole of the pot. I think I'm going to have to come down and pull these plants up, because they're not going to hang on till next year, are they? Unless you there know something more than me, that they can come back again next year. It's a shame there's not more sun, because we've still got some green ones here hanging on. And a few more loquat and a few up there as well. Well, there's a few small tomatoes for my lunch. Just thought I'd mention, we was in the church yesterday. Sadly, our little neighbour died in the house in the corner that I've told you about. So it was quite a busy square yesterday. I've also got washing the machine. I forgot it was in there, so I've got to hang that up as well. Right, washed. Whew. decided to come back in for a cup of tea before going to Lasse, and I thought I'd share and talk to you really about our experience of the funeral yesterday. It's not the first French funeral we've been to, and we've been to another one which wasn't French, but it was in France, and that was at the crematorium. But this is the second burial we've actually been to, and we're still not really understanding what to do really. We wasn't, because one thing as well, in the UK when you go to a funeral it's at least a month before you even get to bury your loved ones. Here as it turned out, Christiane, our neighbour, and this is the neighbour that's in the house with the brown steps and door that I've shown you before. She died at midnight on Sunday, I think it was, and then she was buried yesterday on Wednesday. So it's very quick. Although the French are obviously used to this, for us, we didn't quite know what to do about it. We didn't buy flowers because we didn't know if that was the thing, so we felt a bit bad. I did have a card to give to Leon and Natalie and like for his family. But then we wasn't still not really sure how, like I say, how to behave and what to do next. So we were also just following the crowd really. As soon as we looked out the window, as soon as we saw that people were starting to gather, because it was going to be fortunate for us, we didn't have to go anywhere because it was in our church next to our gîte. And because Christiane, she used to look after the church, she'd go to the church every morning and she would open it so that people could go in. But as she got older, she wasn't doing this, and I don't know whether she was asked not to do it because people weren't using it. I don't really know the story behind that, but yeah, she stopped doing that. But I think that's why they did it here. I mean, there is another church in Poulo which would be much cleaner, but that has now been, is it deconsecrated, I think they call it. I'll put the right word on the screen if I get that wrong. So that's no longer used as a church. So sadly, Leon and his brothers had to clean the church before it could be used yesterday, which again in itself is a lovely thing to do, being as it was for his mother. So as to say, once we saw people gathering outside here, it's outside the front of our house, and cars were beginning to pull up, we thought we would go out. We felt a little bit awkward because by this stage we hadn't seen anybody we actually knew. Then we started to see neighbours we knew were starting to gather, and then I saw the van. Now this in itself is a different thing to what we would do in the UK. We would have a hearse, and I don't know in any of your countries, so I don't know what you do, but in UK it's a hearse. It's a big car that obviously carries the coffin, and they have similar hearses but with seats in that the family follow behind. And one that we do remember that we've seen lots of funerals that we've not been to that have gone past, and they have, which is more like a mini van that they put it in. Our personal opinion, it doesn't seem as nice, but to the French it's normal for them obviously. I mean, they're good, nice new vans and everything. It's not like they're in some old worker's van. It's a nice van. And I'll have to look up the word for what they call it actually, or maybe ask Natalie and Leon, because on Saturday they've already invited us over for drinks on Saturday before we go on holiday. So yeah, as soon as we saw the people out there, we were stood outside waiting, and it seemed to be a long time, but they seemed to wait for quite a while. And it turned out and everybody was standing around the van. And normally with the hearse in the UK, you can see the coffin laying inside, but I couldn't see anything. It was, from what I could see, it was empty, so I thought the coffin had already been carried inside. We were standing there, and our neighbours were very upset, understandably. And eventually the priest came from inside the church, because I was standing thinking, when do we all go in? The priest came out, he blessed the coffin, the what do they call them? Forgotten what they call them. Anyway, the men that carried the coffin in, and then slowly everybody just walked in, up the steps and into the church. And again, once we get inside the church, we're not quite sure where to stand, because obviously the family are going to be near the front. So we just sort of held back, walked in with a couple of our nearest neighbours, walked in with them, sort of smiles and nods and everything. No, again, not knowing quite what to say to anybody. And then we just decided to hang back and sit in front of some other neighbours. So we thought, well, that's obviously where the neighbours, as far as back as they go. So we did that. And again, the neighbours we walked in with came in and stood or sat next to us. It was, I would say, the church was practically full. There was a couple of empty rows, and the coffin just sits. If you've got the aisle, the coffin just sits at the end of the aisle. It doesn't go up onto the altar. It's just fairly close to where you're sitting, really. And the service was. It started to say, right, we're going to say this prayer or this hymn on this page, and then we're all looking round, and for some reason they'd only given the service order and booklet to the first 4 rows. So obviously for us that was even worse, because we didn't know what to sing, what to say, what to do. So again, we had to just follow everybody else. Things like sitting down were obvious, because he just did that, and then standing up was that. We understood very little, but it was a very sombre occasion. There was quite a few hymns. At one point, I think the 3 people that, including her granddaughter, got up to speak. I mean, us personally, we don't really know who the other 2 were or what was being said, obviously. So it was a very different service to what we would have and have been to in the UK. Whether it's normal for a Catholic service, I don't know, because I never went to a Catholic service in the UK. Because everybody's crossing themselves, and I didn't feel right doing that because I wasn't Catholic, so I didn't do that. Felt a little bit. Duncan and I just looked at each other at the corner of our eyes at one point, and you're feeling bad because you're not doing it, but at the same time, So then after that, it went on for quite a while. I think we was in there for a couple of hours, and then from what we could gather, you then had the opportunity near the end of the service to. Oh, that was one point. Duncan understood something they said about putting money in the. Normally the plate would come round for you to put money in. We didn't take any money with us. Felt awful, and Duncan sort of trying to say at the side of his mouth to our neighbour, we didn't bring any money. So he felt terrible. That was one thing we should have remembered, because it happened last time and we didn't have any money with us then either, because we're going to a funeral, we didn't even think to take money with us. So we didn't know then whether, because the idea was you walk up the aisle, bless across yourself, bless, that nod to Christiane's coffin, put money on the plate. So because we hadn't got money to put on the plate, we felt really awkward. So we let our neighbour, when it came to our row, we let our neighbours go up, and we hung back. And then the neighbours behind us were looking at us, so why are you still there? When I think about it now. And they all went up. And then one of the men from the funeral company, he beckoned us to go up, and I just sort of whispered to him, "Je n'ai pas de money, je n'ai pas d'argent." And he said in English, he knew it was English, he just said, "It does not matter, it's not a problem." So we walked up, and Duncan awkwardly sort of did this, but I just sort of nodded and all that, and smiled at Christiane's photo, and then we walked out, but we did plan to just walk back and sit in the pews, the same as a lot of the other people. And I think the people that were actually walking up and walking out were actually leaving and going home, whereas the people that were sitting down were going to be going to the wake afterwards. So we was in a real, because we hadn't formally been asked to go to the wake, but Leon hadn't mentioned it to us. So from that we thought, well, we must be going. So what we did, we walked out, but then we stood outside and walked round to the front of the church and waited for everybody to come out. This is when we noticed a lot of flowers coming out and feeling awful because we hadn't actually bought any flowers, and they were beautiful. And a few of other friends that we know here, there's the lady that runs the restaurant, and Ingrid, the girl that waits at the restaurant, which is a friend of ours as well. Neither of those, they didn't hang around. They as soon as everybody was out of the church, they left. So the next thing we're thinking, do we now go with them to the cemetery, which is a little bit further down in the village? And we did ask our friends, and I don't think they quite understood. When I think about it now, what she did say back was, if you like, but I was trying to ask, do we go there? And meaning, is that the next thing? But she's up wondering, thinking, I obviously asked, do we go? And she said, like, if you like. But they weren't going to go. So once it all started coming out, and we're just watching body language and seeing what's happening with people, and the coffins come out, put back into the van slowly drives away, and then we all follow in procession behind, and it comes out and onto the main road that runs through the village, and everybody just walked down, and the cemetery's like not even 100 metres down the road. And as usual, there's always these disrespectful drivers who can't wait, and we were getting a little bit annoyed with those, but we ignored them, and in the end I just walked down and followed everybody into the cemetery. Then the next thing that happens is everybody's standing around, and the coffin is brought out of the van, and then it's put on a platform and stood on the path in between the two rows of coffins. And then everybody, a lady said a prayer at the end of the coffin, and then everybody was asked to come and pay respects to Christiane. So everybody was asked to gather around the coffin, and everybody will put their hand on the coffin or cross themselves again, and then move away. And then the men took the coffin, which was prepared and ready for us, over on the side. And as far as we know, the coffin contained Leon's father as well, so she was joining him in the coffin, which I think is always just a lovely thing. And then you'll then go, everybody walked then, this is another thing we felt awkward about, because most people seem to have like a single flower, single rose or something, to actually throw into the coffin. Now, we didn't actually see the coffin lowered into the ground, because it was quite a way away from where we were standing. It's quite a crowded it's a very small cemetery. I might have shown it on one of my videos, but it's quite small. And so in the end, everybody just walked in a line, went past, again blessing the coffin, crossing themselves, throwing down their flower onto the coffin. And that was the first time I realised the coffin was even in there, because you could hear the flowers hitting it. And then we stood onto the sideline, because we didn't feel right doing that, especially without a flower. So we stood back, and then we walked back round and discussing between us, what do we do now? Do we go to, or where is the wake? Where are we going? And then both Natalie and Leon at separate times had said to us, are you coming back for a coffee in the salle? So obviously we said yes. So then we all had to walk out the cemetery round. It's quite a little walk actually, so we all followed in procession, walking back to it's actually a little room that's near the salle de fete, which is the salle de fete where we got married and which is now being renovated. And this room is just the right size. It's used for the nursery children. It's like a small classroom. And on Wednesdays there's no school, so it wasn't being used anyway. So, and we walked in and there was a table full of glasses and coffee cups and lots of plates with sliced brioche loaf. So that was, you know, so it's all so different. I mean, a lot of funerals in the UK, there'll be a buffet on. We did put on a big buffet of food, and it was held in my mum's local working man's club. So it was like a much bigger occasion and less solemn, I would say. So once we all got back, and again feeling awkward, do we go in the hall? Do we wait for someone to tell us? But we walked in, and straight away Leon has offered us, would you want coffee or do you want rosé or vin rouge? And I had, I asked for rosé. As it turned out, Leon didn't. I don't think he realised, but it was a very sweet wine. So we had that, and then we had some brioche, which was very nice. So then we didn't really speak to many people, and I don't know if they knew who we were. Leon and Natalie may have told them. I don't know. They might. You know, you can imagine. You know, secretly they're asking who are those two people. We spoke to Natalie briefly, but we left her alone to grieve because she was very upset. So yeah, we just stood talking and I spoke to the odd people here and there that we did know. And I said to Dunk, do you think we should just slip out? And he said, no, we just go with the flow and we'll wait. And it was really awkward because it did become quite, well, as I say, awkward. And as more people started to go, we started seeing people we knew, and we just went up and got ourselves another glass of wine, which obviously made us more relaxed, as it would. And we just got chatting, and Duncan got chatting to a young man. I say young man, he's not like a teenager young man. He was, we think, one of Leon's nephews, but I'm totally wrong. And if Leon, you're watching this, I apologise if I got that wrong. Not that he's going to know what I'm saying. And we got talking about stuff, and he knew a few English words, but he was very interested and curious about English. And he was saying that he shops in the shop called Mange 2 in Goron near us, and he was saying about how he likes to try the English food. Anyway, that's by the by. But eventually, cutting a long story short, everybody's clearing out, and Leon was starting to wash the glasses. And I grabbed a tea towel and I started to dry the glasses and helping them put them back in the boxes. One glass I picked up, I was drying it, realised it had a crack in it. Now I don't know if I broke it or whether it got broke in the sink when it was being washed, but that was the only one that got broke. And then yeah, it just cleared up, and then we were starting to think, what do we do now? So we all left and we've got to say goodbye, and all of a sudden it was like bonne soirée, everybody's going. And that was it, home. But just before they left, Natalie came over and she said, come to us on Saturday before you go on holiday for drinks. So that's when we got the invite. So we had that to look forward to on Saturday. I don't know as yet whether we're going for food or for apéros, so I'm going to have to ask awkwardly in a message, because we don't want to eat before we go and then find that we're eating. So yeah, so that was our experience. So it's quite different to what we do in the UK, but we wanted to go, we wanted to show our respect to Christiane. She was a lovely, lovely lady, and we are missing her already. It's strange that the house is empty. So anyway, I'm going to finish my tea. It's got a little bit cold now while I've been gassing to you. Not quite cold, sort of lukewarm. And yeah, you may come on a bit of the walk with me, you may not.